I didn't really understand what was happening the first time Fitz climbed onto me. I had stopped by the shelter on a random afternoon with no real plan in mind. Sometimes I do that just to spend a little time around animals. I wasn't looking for a cat. I definitely wasn't expecting to leave with one. There were cats everywhere that day. Some stayed curled up in the back of their spaces. Some watched people walk by without moving. A few tried to get attention through the cage doors. Fitz skipped all of that. The second I got close, this little tuxedo cat launched himself up my leg like we already knew each other. Before I could react, he climbed all the way up and tucked himself into the hood of my jacket. Just settled in there like he'd done it his whole life.
You coming?
I laughed, pulled him down gently, and set him back on the floor. He immediately climbed back up again. Same thing, straight to the hood. By the third time, people around me had started laughing too, and I remember standing there thinking, well, I guess this cat already made the decision. That was Fitz. He never really waited around for permission.
He's playing with sticks and rocks. He's never done that before.
The ride home felt less like bringing home a new pet and more like bringing home someone who already belonged there. The second we walked through the door, he started exploring like he had memorized the place ahead of time. No hiding under furniture, no nervous pacing, just confidence. Then there was Coco. Coco is my dog, and honestly, that first introduction could have gone 100 different ways. Most people expect some awkward adjustment period between cats and dogs. I definitely did. Fitz apparently did not. He walked right up to her, curious as ever, while Coco stayed calm and patient. Within minutes, the tension I'd prepared for never even happened. It was strangely natural, like two animals that had already agreed on the arrangement before I got there. After that, they became a pair, and watching them together was hilarious sometimes because Fitz didn't act like most cats around dogs. He didn't dart away or keep his distance. He followed Coco everywhere. Sometimes he'd even lead the way.
You guys are so funny. Oh my goodness.
The funniest part was the way he ran. He didn't really sprint like a normal cat. He sort of galloped beside her, bouncing through the yard with this awkward confidence that made it impossible not to laugh. Somehow, Coco always seemed to understand his rhythm too.
Oh, hello.
Over time, they developed this routine together where they moved through the day like teammates. That routine slowly pulled Fitz into everything else I was doing too.
Oh, is Coco still faster than you?
I've never liked leaving my animals behind if I can help it. If I'm outside doing something peaceful, I want them there with me. So when I started taking the kayak out to the lake more often, I caught myself wondering if there was some way Fitz could come too. Most people don't exactly picture a cat out on the water, but Fitz had already stopped acting like a normal cat a long time ago.
Oh no! Oh dear, he sees a bird. Oh, he sees eagles.
So I built this little floating platform out of a cooler, pool noodles, and some weights to keep it steady. Nothing fancy. Honestly, it looked a little ridiculous the first time. I remember setting him on it very carefully, fully expecting him to panic and jump straight into the water. Instead, he sat there calmly. Then he laid down. Then he completely relaxed. Now when I take the kayak out, Fitz comes with me almost every time. I tow his little platform behind the kayak, and he rides out there like he owns the lake, calm, alert, watching birds, water, trees moving in the wind. Sometimes he looks more relaxed out there than I am.
I think they like Fitz's boat. Apparently they're very skittish.
At home, though, the peaceful version of Fitz disappears pretty quickly. Morning and evening are pure chaos. He's flying across furniture, chasing toys, leaping after invisible things only he can see. For such a small cat, he somehow manages to launch himself halfway across a room.
Oh, Kitten!
But sometime around midday, he vanishes. Between noon and 5, it's like he stops existing. He finds some hidden corner of the house and sleeps so deeply you almost forget he's around. Then around 4 in the morning, he suddenly remembers I exist again. That's his favorite time to talk, not quietly either. He'll stand there meowing until I acknowledge him, completely convinced that 4 a.m. is a perfectly reasonable hour for attention and conversation. I can't even pretend to be annoyed anymore because that's just part of who he is. People ask me all the time how I trained him to walk off leash. Truthfully, I didn't. Coco trained him without realizing it. He watched her. That's what Fitz does. He watches everything. Coco stayed close, moved calmly, checked back often, and Fitz copied her little by little until it became normal for him too.
Well, it's not quite it.
Of course, there are still moments that make my heart stop for a second. Sometimes he'll disappear into bushes chasing a squirrel, and suddenly everything goes quiet. Those few seconds feel much longer than they really are. Then out of nowhere, he comes sprinting back toward us like nothing happened at all. That trust didn't happen overnight. It came from years of routines, consistency, patience, and learning each other little by little. And honestly, those small moments are the ones that stay with me most now. Watching Fitz leap into the air after something invisible, seeing him stretched out peacefully on the water behind my kayak, feeling him curl up nearby before sunrise while the whole house is still quiet. None of those moments fix life's bigger problems. They don't make difficult days disappear. But they slow things down just enough to remind you there's still something good right in front of you.